You're listening to World Update. A British police officer has won a prestigious prize for political writing in his blog on life at the front line of fighting crime. Jack Knight, it's not his real name, won a special Orwell prize, that's named after the campaigning English journalist George Orwell, for Night Jack, an English detective. Here's an extract.
Having gone truncheons to tasers in a generation, I also have to wonder what purpose the current police service has been built for. We're told that we need to engage more with the public and neighbourhoods. Unfortunately, we now have a response wing that looks just like the old armed response vehicle units used to, except without the guns. And the entry-level police officers and police community support officers look like the response unit used to, but with flak jackets. It looks like we've been built to violently confront and overcome people. I'm not saying that is our mindset, but it is without doubt what we are equipped to do. Once people get over the quasi-military kit, we're mostly approachable and pleasant people. It's just that we dress like Imperial stormtroopers.
An extract from the Night Jack blog. Well, I spoke to Professor Jean Seaton, director of the Orwell Prize. I asked her, what did they like about this blogger?
I had to say my judges chose, not me. But what was absolutely unanimous, and it just came out, was that he made you understand why blogging was a particular form. It was a very bloggy kind of blog. You get the kind of things that are going on in his life. But I think we all found it just completely riveting because it was very much the day-to-day life of a provincial policeman. And you got that sense of the way in which the police actually are kind of... I suddenly had this image of them as gardeners, that they deal with all sorts of weeds. They produce a kind of civility. And he's rather evidently a decent man. He's not without his views. So we thought that it was a blog that looked like a blog, but also it was one that really took you to somewhere that without it you wouldn't have been taken.
It's quite an exciting read, there's no question about that, but it's not a typical blog really. It's very literary in its style. Let me just quote, I also see cost efficiency, this is from the blog, bang for bucks as the new golden calf. I don't suppose there are that many police officers on the beat who would quite write that way.
Well, this is the Orwell Prize, and we have two criteria for both the books and the journalism and the blogs, one of which is originality of ideas, and the other of which is good, plain, quality writing. Orwell said, what I want to do is make political writing into an art. So we're always looking for a literary quality. And I think what Orwell thought, and I suppose that's what I think, is that literary merit isn't it's not like the icing on the cake. If you misuse words, you destroy politics. If you use them well, you make our condition more clear to us, and that's a political act. And I think probably people thought that this was a blog that was written by somebody with a capacity to put experiences into words.
It's also not on message, and indeed George Orwell was very rarely on message, but this is from another blog which is called provocatively The Evil Poor, and he's talking about the respect agenda and a poster, give respect, get respect, in his police station. He calls it a stupid, stupid slogan. He says, I'm not going to give respect to these people because they just want to get high, molest your 14-year-old daughter, I paraphrase, until she's pregnant and nick your stuff. It's a fairly depressing perspective on policing, isn't it?
Well, I suspect he's telling us what policemen feel about what may be false impositions of... curiously, I don't want to talk about political correctness, but that's the shorthand way of doing it, that we've got locked up into ways of talking through which we all have to put the experience of our everyday lives. And although I'm terribly in favour of courtesy in speech, actually, he's basically showing you what it looks like from the front line of policing, and there's absolutely no doubt he's in the front line of policing still. So is that depressing? Well, he's a policeman. No doubt it's a slightly depressing job.
That's Professor Jean Seaton. You're listening to the BBC.